Zone 2 training is everywhere right now.
We should all be getting 200 minutes per week minimum of Zone 2 cardio.
How many zones are there?
Decent amount of Zone 2 training.
Social media is full of runners and coaches telling you to run slow, claiming it's the secret to getting faster. But here's the thing, most people are doing Zone 2 training wrong. There's a ton of hype and misunderstanding around this magic zone. In fact, this recent review even questioned whether Zone 2 deserves all the praise it's been getting lately. And honestly, they have a point. But if you do it right, Zone 2 can be something really great and actually take your endurance to the next level. I'm Göran, a physiotherapist and a coach, and this is your science-backed guide to Zone 2 training. First, let's break down this Zone 2 training term and what it actually means. Exercise scientists and coaches often break down training intensity into 5 different zones. Zone 2 refers to a low-intensity aerobic zone, meaning your body primarily uses oxygen and fat for fuel. So, in simple terms, this is an easy pace where you can hold a conversation while running or cycling or whatever training you're doing, and your heart rate stays relatively low. For many, it is around that 60 to 70% of their maximum heart rate. And this paper here, done by an expert panel, defined Zone 2 training as training just below your first lactate threshold. That's the point where blood lactate levels begin to rise above resting levels. So, what is it that happens when you spend a lot of time in this Zone 2? If you are able to train a lot in that zone, you're supposed to build that aerobic base, meaning your muscles get better at using oxygen to produce energy. Because Zone 2 training can increase the density of the capillaries, ramp up your mitochondria in your muscle fibers, so you basically can produce more energy with the oxygen and enhance your ability to burn fat for fuel. And all of these changes obviously make you a more efficient endurance athlete. You simply become able to run at a given pace with less effort, which of course is something all of us runners want. So this all sounds great, right? But let's break down the first myth about the Zone 2 hype. Because with all of this said, it is really important to point out that these aerobic adaptations aren't unique to just staying in that Zone 2 when training. The experts in this paper pointed out that you could induce similar benefits with slightly higher or lower intensities as well. In other words, there's nothing magic about exactly Zone 2. Any exercise that challenges your aerobic system will help you improve that system. But here's the thing, Zone 2 hits a sort of sweet spot in another way. It's intense enough to stimulate those positive changes in your physiology, and when it comes to running training, it is close enough to the movement pattern to be a relevant enough pace to boost your running economy for most kind of races. So although it in a way might be overhyped, this brings us to the real core of why running slow actually might make you faster. But before we dive into the science behind why Zone 2 training might make you run faster and bust some more of the most common myths around it, I want to give a big thanks to the sponsor of this video, that is Coros. And they make these great watches that I use for all of my training, and also great software for us runners who actually want to understand our training and analyze our training sessions. And their watches can be especially useful when it comes to tracking intensity zones in real time. I'm using the Coros Pace Pro, and one quick tip to make those heart rate readings really accurate is to wear the watch a bit higher than you might usually do up on the wrist, and then make it really tight there. And that way I found that I would get really reliable readings. But if you want spot-on accuracy without thinking of any of that, I highly recommend pairing it with one of these. That is the Coros heart rate monitor that you basically just strap around your biceps, and then this optical sensor here get exposed to an area with more blood flow. And it's not just for Coros watches, it's compatible with all devices that can accept Bluetooth heart rate data. When I did lab testing earlier this year, this gave me identical readings to the lab grade chest strap. So after that I have 100% trusted this when it comes to checking my heart rate to find the correct training zones for my different rounds. So a big thanks to Coros for supporting my channel and creating these great products for us runners. The phrase train slow to race fast has a lot of truth behind it, but it is also in some way completely wrong. Let me explain, because this is where runners often get it wrong. Because running slow allows you to accumulate more volume and do it consistently. And consistency over time is the simple secret sauce of any successful training program. There is plenty of scientific evidence supporting this. Essentially, doing higher volume of training at low intensity will steadily over time build up your endurance engine. Although there seems to be a recent hype around this Zone 2 training, most elite endurance athletes figured this out long ago. Observational studies of world-class runners, cyclists and skiers have for a really long time now shown that they spent around 75 to 80% of their training at that low intensity, with only 20% in those higher intensity zones, leading to that well-known 80-20 training approach. But here's the thing, those 20% of high intensity training is what will give you the quickest improvement in the least amount of time when it comes to your VO2 max, basically your all-out endurance capacity. So why not just do high intensity all the time? The simple answer is because you simply can't, at least not for long. Believe me, I tried myself in my younger years, and high intensity training is extremely taxing on the body in many ways. So if you try to run every session near your limit, if you don't quickly lose motivation and stop training because it's not that fun pushing that hard every single session when it hurts that much, you will likely get injured because of how taxing it is on your joints, your tendons, your ligaments and your muscles. I've actually seen this a lot from working as a physiotherapist. Let's just say that runners who do every run at a really high intensity are frequent visitors to physio clinics. I often say this to my athletes and still have to remind myself as well about this, that it's not about how hard you can go in one single workout, it's about how consistently you can train month after month and year after year. And slow runs are the tool that lets you keep showing up day after day and also actually enjoy it over time. And that's the one missing piece I think a lot of people talking about Zone 2 training online are completely neglecting and missing. And this is maybe the most valuable part for all of us non-elite athletes. And it is that although it is fun to push really hard sometimes, if you want to enjoy running over time and stick to it as a hopefully lifelong habit, doing a lot of training around that Zone 2 that feels pleasant and you can chat with friends while you're out running, or just enjoy nature and moving at a comfortable pace that is still not boringly slow, is such a great thing and makes you like running over time. And as a physio and coach, I've sadly seen so many people wanting to get into running, ending up hating it and quitting because they think that they need to push themselves hard in every single run. And the great added bonus to doing a lot of Zone 2 training is, as we mentioned earlier, that this low intensity running on that Zone 2 intensity triggers many of the adaptations needed for distance running performance. For example, this study here from 2024 found that doing around 7 hours of Zone 2 training per week significantly improved the participants' fat burning ability and their aerobic threshold and their exercise efficiency. So basically all of these low intensity performance metrics we measure. So the other training group in this study did short but very hard interval training, only around 1.6 hours of training per week, but really high intensity. And they actually had a much greater VO2 max boost after the training period. But they saw very little benefits for those low intensity endurance markers. So the takeaway is that, as I have so often said on this channel before, is that you get good at what you train at. And both easy volume and some intensity have unique different benefits. They are complementary and both are needed for peak performance. So easy mileage builds up the base so you can go longer, burn fat and improve your efficiency. And it will allow you to build your top peak performance even higher if you have that big, strong aerobic foundation to build on. Let's address a misconception, because I've heard this statement from so many people. If I just slow down all my runs to zone 2, I'll become much better and improve my aerobic base and become a better runner. And this is not really true. Yes, slowing down will likely make you faster if it enables you to train more. But you won't get magically faster and improve just because you ran slow today instead of moderate or hard. Actually, if your overall training volume doesn't change and your intensity goes down, you will most probably over time become a slower runner. So in other words, zone 2 isn't this magic bullet, it's more of a tool. And this narrative review here challenged this whole hype and all the endorsement of zone 2 going on right now. They concluded that current evidence does not support zone 2 training as the optimal intensity for improving mitochondrial or fatty acid oxidative capacity. Further evidence suggests prioritizing higher exercise intensities than zone 2 is critical to maximize cardiometabolic health benefits, particularly in the context of lower training volumes. So, put simply, if you're only going to run, say, 3 hours per week, which is common for many runners, making some of that running hard at higher intensities will improve your VO2 max and performance a lot more than doing all of it in zone 2. So, although it, as mentioned, might not be as magical as some gurus on the internet make it out to be, zone 2 training is still a really powerful approach, especially if you train a lot. And it works best when balanced with some higher intensity work as well. The vast majority of your runs, maybe 70 to 80%, should feel comfortable, especially when running a lot. Then sprinkle in those hard workouts and interval sessions, maybe hill work strategically. Because those hard sessions are what sharpen your speed and translate your big aerobic base into your racing ability at the very top. The beauty is that your easy zone 2 runs will also make you better at those hard workouts too, because you come into them more rested, having run a bit easier on the easier workouts. When starting out trying to hit that zone 2 and doing zone 2 training, be prepared for a bit of a reality check, because you might have to run a bit slower than you expect to keep your heart rate down in that zone 2. Many new runners find their easy runs were not truly easy when they start tracking their heart rate and checking approximately where their zone 2 is. But don't worry, because within a few weeks of consistent zone 2 work, you'll likely see your pace naturally drop at the same low heart rate. From a coaching perspective, I encourage most runners, especially those that are prone to running injuries or burnout, or completely new runners, to spend a period of 1 to about 3 months focusing on base mileage. During this time you might run more miles than you have ever done before, but almost all of them should be relaxed around that zone 2. And it can be a mental shift if you're used to pushing hard on all runs, but remind yourself that you're playing the long game, and by avoiding the red zone in your training, you're staying healthy and building strength. And also building a body with tendons, muscles and bones that will be able to endure a lot more of those hard training sessions later without getting injured. And when you do introduce speed work again, you'll be able to handle it and absorb the benefits of it a lot better because of your great aerobic base. And the end result is simply a higher peak performance. Zone 2 training isn't the only thing runners get easily confused about, and if you want to make sure you're not falling for any other running myths that could ruin your training, then watch this video here, where I break down the most common myths I see all of the time. A huge thanks again to Chorus. There's a link in the description to check out all of their great running watches. Train smart, have fun, and I will see you in the next video.